This is CBN NewsWatch.
And thanks for joining us for CBN NewsWatch. I'm Heather Sells. Billionaire investor Jeffrey Epstein has pleaded not guilty to sex trafficking charges. That while prosecutors made a disturbing discovery at his Manhattan mansion. Charlene Aaron joins us now in the newsroom. She's been following the story. Charlene?
That's right, Heather. Jeffrey Epstein appeared in federal court today, pleading not guilty to charges that he trafficked dozens of girls at his Manhattan and Palm Beach homes. Prosecutors say Epstein is a significant flight risk and asked he be detained until his trial.
When you have two planes and you live much of the year abroad, we think that's a very real risk.
The girls were allegedly asked to give Epstein massages that he quickly turned into sex acts, including molestation. He allegedly paid the victims in cash and encouraged them to recruit other young girls to return with them. Victims who returned with new victims were paid a finder's fee. Police raided Epstein's Manhattan mansion Monday, where they found a stockpile of nude photos of what appeared to be girls under 18. Some of the pictures were on CDs with labels saying Miscellaneous Nudes 1 and Girl Pics Nude. Epstein, who has in the past been socialized with President Bill Clinton and with Donald Trump, is already a convicted pedophile. His arrest comes after years of accusations that he repeatedly sexually assaulted minor girls as young as 13. The Miami Herald reports that Epstein pled guilty in 2008 to one count of solicitation of prostitution and one count of solicitation of prostitution with a minor. He served just 13 months in a Florida prison and was forced to register as a sex offender. This woman says that she was just 14 when she was assaulted by Epstein.
We get to look him in the face today and see him, in handcuffs. It was just nice to be able to share it with somebody, look at you and say, okay, today's our day.
And many on Twitter are responding to the case, with one woman saying, hey, everyone in media, stop saying and printing sex with underage women. Underage women are children. And meanwhile, U.S. Labor Secretary Alex Acosta is facing calls to resign over a 2008 secret plea deal he cut with Epstein while Acosta was prosecuting attorney in Miami. Epstein was reportedly given preferential treatment during his time in prison and was housed in a private wing. These latest sex trafficking charges reportedly carry a combined maximum sentence of up to 45 years in prison. Heather?
Incredible. Thank you so much, Charlene. Well, joining us now is Lila Micklethwait. She's the director of Abolition for Exodus Cry, a nonprofit committed to abolishing sex trafficking. Lila, this really is an incredible case. What stands out to you about it as you've seen other sex trafficking cases before?
Well, I think it's an incredibly diabolical case, as they all are. In my opinion, it's not surprising. I think the public has a good opportunity right now for a teaching moment to know that those who are engaging in these activities of sex trafficking and sexual exploitation are not who you might think they are. They're people who are in business and government and the clergy and positions of authority in our society a lot of the time. And I think that's important to know, that it's not just some seedy person in the underworld that's engaging in these activities. It's your everyday man who's doing these things.
And in his case, he was so elevated. I mean, at one time he had the praise of Bill Clinton, President Trump before he was president. He also, of course, has already been convicted and served time in prison for similar sex trafficking charges, but he cut a secret plea deal with prosecutors, only did 13 months. What kind of message does all this send to the public?
I think the problem is that at large, in our society today, we're trying to normalize sexual exploitation in the sex industry. There's lobbyists who are trying to get laws passed in states across the United States to legalize prostitution and relabeling it as sex work, calling men who buy sex customers, thinking of traffickers and pimps as just ordinary businessmen. And it's a truly sinister movement to try and normalize prostitution, which we know is a system of exploitation of the most vulnerable in our midst, especially children, who most of them who are in prostitution as adults entered underage. One legal scholar said that women in prostitution are just children in prostitution who are lucky enough to live long enough to become women in prostitution. They're not two separate groups of people. They're the same people at different points in their life. And so I think it's important for us to take a step back and to look at this situation and say, you know what, we need to stop normalizing the purchase of sex in our society, normalizing prostitution, and see it for what it is. It's truly a system of exploitation. And this is one example of how that works. But it's truly a system at large.
How do you think he was able to go on for so long? Of course, this is the second round. You would think that people would have their radar up with him. How was he able to lure these girls in?
Well, again, it's a preying on their vulnerability. He's finding young girls who are in need of money, girls who are vulnerable to advances by older, wealthy men who might make them feel special, maybe girls who are having trouble at home and things of that nature. This is just absolutely the common technique for those who prey upon women and girls in the sex industry, in trafficking, but also in prostitution at large. With regard to women, all underage girls who are in prostitution are victims of sex trafficking. They are not underage sex workers. They are not children in prostitution. That's just, we need to call it like it is, which is really important. But, he was doing this because he was preying upon their vulnerability. And that's what this system of prostitution and trafficking is all about. And that's the common technique for all predators in the industry.
Wow. Well, I know this case is generating a lot of conversation. And Lila Micklethwait, thanks for your insights.
Thank you.
Attorney General William Barr says he sees a way to legally require census respondents to declare whether or not they're citizens, despite a recent Supreme Court ruling that forbade asking the question, at least temporarily.
I've been in constant discussions with the president ever since the Supreme Court decision came down. And I think over the next day or two, you'll see what approach we're taking. And I think it does provide a pathway for getting the question on the census.
Now, the Justice Department is replacing the legal team that's working on the issue, putting in a new team of career and politically appointed attorneys. The administration says the question would help enforce the Voting Rights Act to protect minorities' rights to vote. But House Speaker Nancy Pelosi blasted the president over his actions on the census question.
But this is about keeping, make America, his hat, make America white again. They want to make sure that certain people are counted. It's really disgraceful. And it's not what our founders had in mind.
Pelosi said in a letter to colleagues that the full House of Representatives will be moving ahead with a vote to hold Barr and Commerce Secretary Wilbur Ross in contempt of Congress after the administration failed to comply with subpoenas on the census question. We will have more on this story and others on Faith Nation this evening, and you can watch that here on the CBN News channel. Well, you have heard the phrase drain the swamp, referring to Washington, D.C. Well, D.C. residents are hoping their city actually drains today after drenching rains brought flooding and hit the area. Dale Hurd has the story.
The D.C. area is trying to dry off after nearly a month's worth of rain in one morning and nearly 75 reported water rescues. It was a huge volume of water, more than 3 inches in Arlington in an hour. As much as 6 inches falling on Fredericksburg in 2 hours.
Never seen nothing like this before. Never seen nothing like this.
Roads were washed out in Virginia and Maryland. Emergency crews had to rescue dozens of stranded drivers.
I was stopped at the light. Bus came through. It was like a tidal wave hit me. Boom!
The storm sucker punched the D.C. area as thousands of commuters were on their way to work Monday. In Arlington, Virginia, this train had to go through a waterfall, leaking from the ceiling of a D.C. metro station. And look at this river of water filling a parking garage. Even the White House saw signs of flooding, and electrical outages were reported at some government buildings. Outside D.C., a mudslide in Potomac, Maryland collapsed the wall of this house. And in Virginia, a hardware store owner saw her basement filled to the top with water.
By the time I left the basement, I swam out of it. It was probably close to my shoulder height.
New York Congresswoman Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez was quick to blame the flooding on climate change and Republicans, tweeting, "Unprecedented flooding is quickly becoming a new normal, And each day of inaction puts more of us in danger. But she was challenged by respected meteorologist Dr. Ryan Maui, who tweeted back, "You should resist the emotional temptation to blame every weather event on climate change." As these floodwaters recede, a lot more rain is coming farther south on the Gulf Coast, because a tropical depression is likely to form by the end of the week in the Gulf of Mexico. And if it strengthens enough, it will become Tropical Storm Barry. Dale Hurd, CBN News.
Roman soldiers destroy the Second Temple of Jerusalem. Centuries of eyewitnesses say the temple treasures survived. But where are they?
They went from Jerusalem to Rome, Rome to Carthage, Carthage to Byzantium.
Historians are silent about what happened to it next.
This is a bad omen.
Hosted and narrated by Gordon Robertson.
So does it still exist today?
CBN Documentaries presents a story of mystery.
Where is it?
Calamity. Most of the victims were butchered. And destiny.
The possibility to dig is impossible.
Take a journey to find Treasures of the Second Temple, a CBN Documentaries presentation, coming July 8th.
Remember for a moment what it was like to be a child. You believed every story you were told. You saw a world full of endless possibilities. What stories will the world's orphaned and at-risk children believe? We believe the Bible tells the only story truly worth believing. We believe that every child should have the opportunity to dream, the chance to take challenges and turn them into possibilities, the chance to stand on the promises of God, to recognize their place in the greatest story ever told. They have their whole lives ahead of them. Theirs is a world of endless possibilities. They are looking for a story to believe. We will tell them that story. Will you join us?
Welcome back. Awareness of fake products sold on Amazon is growing, and that includes counterfeit books. An evangelical author is one of the latest victims. Tish Warren Harrison wrote the bestseller Liturgy of the Ordinary for InterVarsity Press. The publisher recently discovered that 15,000 counterfeit copies were sold on Amazon, and their value was close to $250,000. Joining us now is Elise Wisman, who manages publicity at InterVarsity Press. Elise, how did you find out that this was going on?
Thank you for having me, Heather. We found out through a customer complaint, actually. So we had a reader that contacted us and said, something's wrong with my book. What can you do? So we had them send the copy to us to inspect it, and we went back and forth and checked, and turned out that it was in fact counterfeit. So we found out where she purchased it from, and were able to trace it through to a number of counterfeit third-party sellers on Amazon.
Wow. And talk about, how does this affect an author and a publisher when something like this happens, both just financially and in other ways?
Well, I mean, financially, it's for Tish specifically, it's 15,000 copies. So that's a large amount in terms of royalties and a large amount for us in terms of lost sales. I think for us, there was a good bit of manpower that was put into uncovering and then reporting all of these issues that we were having, which we're very grateful Amazon acted on it quickly. Everything has been rectified as far as our books are concerned, and they've been very responsive to us, and we're grateful for that. But I think, and I can't speculate as to how Tish is feeling, but I think as an author, it has to be a bit of a blow, because there are books that you wrote that are not being paid for, that you're not getting credit for, and that's upsetting on a personal level.
Right, and I know going forward, I think that'll affect her if she writes another book too. And of course, as you mentioned, you formally complained to Amazon. They have removed the resellers of the counterfeit editions of Liturgy of the Ordinary from its store, but do you suspect that fake versions of other IVP books that are being sold right now, that this problem is not over for you as a publisher or other publishers?
No, actually, as far as our books are concerned, everything has been rectified. So We were able to report Tish's book and one other that was reported, and Amazon acted very quickly, took all of the sellers down. We don't have any suspicious activity on our books at this point. And the benefit of us reporting it is that the sellers were also selling other publishers' books, so they're benefiting in turn from our awareness of the issue.
Okay. Going forward, how can book buyers, people who love books, determine whether they're actually buying a real book or a fake book?
That's a great question. I think as far as the counterfeit copies are concerned, there are a number of ways to tell that it's perhaps counterfeit, but they're not conclusive. Things like weird looking color on the cover, misprints inside the book itself. Any of that stuff is maybe suspicious. But in order to determine that you're actually buying a legitimate copy, you can purchase through Amazon directly. So it would say ships by and sold by Amazon, and not necessarily a third-party seller. I should also say that not all third-party sellers are problematic. Most of them are completely fine. You can also buy direct from a publisher. So we have direct-to-consumer efforts on our website that you can buy directly from us for all of our titles. And you can also shop at your local Christian bookstore. I think in this age, it's a good time to be shopping local and be supporting the local booksellers that are in your town.
Well, that's a lot of good information. Elise Wisman with InterVarsity Press, thanks for your time.
Thanks, Heather.
Still ahead, are you eating too much sugar? If you are, you're at greater risk for heart disease, along with cancer and even Alzheimer's. We'll tell you more when we come back.
Give me that. Bye. Sure, life is busy, but I found a way to make a huge difference in people's lives. I guess you could say I'm changing the world right here from home. I bring medical supplies and doctors to people in need, and dig wells so that villagers can have clean and safe water to drink. I make it possible to preach the gospel in over 100 countries, including right here in America. And when disaster strikes, I'm there, providing food, thank you, and emergency supplies to give people hope again. Every day, CBN and I are making the world a better place. Here you go. My life is hectic, so I joined CBN through Pledge Express. My bank does all the work, and I know that my gift is being used where it's needed most. So become a CBN partner and join Pledge Express, because you can do a world of good right from where you are. Hi, good morning. Are you ready to get started?
Hey, if you're tired and exhausted all day, you can't think clearly, and you really just need a cup or even a pot of coffee to get through your day, then join me, Dr. Josh Axe, for this new series where I'm going to teach you how to transform your diet and use essential oils and supplements to get a better night's sleep.
Get Protect Your Sleep and live your best life with innovative information from 5 leading sleep experts.
If you're not a great sleeper, you can do things to make yourself a great sleeper. If you're already a pretty good sleeper, you can enhance your sleep and be even better.
Discover a sleep-enhancing bedtime routine, how to put insomnia to rest, learn how to relieve pain that disturbs sleep, and much more in Protect Your Sleep.
Everything you do better with a good night's sleep.
Wake up to your best life. Call 1-800-700-7000 to get your free DVD or booklet of Protect Your Sleep today.
Don't miss out on this brand new series.
Well, we hate to report this, but research has shown that people who consume lots of sugar are more than twice as likely to die from heart disease. Lori Johnson has more.
When we think of addiction, we tend to focus on drugs and alcohol. But more doctors say we should also consider sugar.
Sugar is the source of all chronic disease. It's one of the biggest contributors. And we know that solid tumors, cancers, feed on sugar.
Dr. Vincent Pedre is one of a growing number of physicians warning consuming too much sugar not only fuels cancer, but also heart disease and Alzheimer's.
And let me clarify that, because when I say consuming too much sugar, people think, well, I don't eat dessert, so I don't have a lot of sugar. But then they're eating bread, rice, pasta, or scones. They're not thinking of that as sugar. But sugar comes from all of these sources. We break down the carbohydrates and they become sugar.
An estimated 3/4 of Americans are addicted to sugar and don't know it. But food manufacturers do. They add sugar to nearly everything, including things that might not seem sweet, like crackers and yogurt, to keep customers coming back for more. Most people might be shocked to discover they consume 100 times more sugar than their ancestors did back in the 1800s. And that's at the root of their health issues.
Bloating, abdominal pain, but also sinus congestion, mental fog, memory issues, fatigue, achiness, joint pains. These are all symptoms of consuming too much sugar in all of its forms. But people don't connect the two.
Scientists used lab animals to prove sugar is even more addictive than illicit drugs.
So sugar stimulates the same parts of the brain as cocaine. So I tell people that sugar is cocaine for your brain. And by that I mean it affects the dopamine pathways. And dopamine is the neurotransmitter that makes you feel good, that things are great.
A little is never enough.
Because that's the design of the neural circuit in the brain. It's gonna want more hits. And it keeps wanting more and more because it becomes desensitized to small amounts.
That's why he recommends quitting sweets cold turkey.
The craving is not gonna last longer than 10 to 20 minutes. So if you don't give in to the craving initially, eventually it's gonna pass because your body is gonna realize that it doesn't really need that for survival.
Or at least substituting whole fruit.
Now, the chocolate chip cookie is gonna be a much faster hit for the brain. So you get that quicker satisfaction. If you have a fruit, let's say an orange or some berries, you need to give it a little more time. The feedback is gonna happen, it's just gonna take a couple of minutes.
When it comes to sugar substitutes, while whole fruit is okay, avoid artificial sweeteners because research shows they're actually worse than the real thing. In his book, Happy Gut, Dr. Pedre explains that artificial sweeteners harm our immune system by disrupting the bacteria in our digestive tract.
It reduces a type of bacteria that tends to be found in lean, healthy people, and it increases another type of bacteria in this genus called Bacteroidetes that is found in people that are obese.
Studies show people who regularly use artificial sweeteners gain more weight. Their ingredients trigger insulin resistance.
If you're becoming deaf and you have to turn the volume up higher, your body is becoming deaf to the signal, the insulin signal. So your body jacks up the insulin. But if insulin is high, what happens is it tells your body, it turns on genes that say, store fat.
The good news, intermittent fasting can often reverse insulin issues. That means, for instance, going without food for 12 hours.
The idea behind intermittent fasting is that when you're not eating, you're allowing your insulin levels to drop. You're allowing insulin receptors to reset. So then what's happening towards the end of the fast is you're increasing insulin sensitivity. So you're making your body insulin sensitive again.
Intermittent fasting also repairs our cells and turns on longevity genes. So it might not be easy, but giving up sweets in their many forms, including artificial sweeteners, could pay off big time. Lori Johnson, CBN News.
Lori will have more stories on your health tonight on Healthy Living at 9:30 Eastern on the CBN News Channel.
We will move the American embassy to the eternal capital of the Jewish people, Jerusalem.
As the nations rage, you can stand with Israel.
History is being written, and I want to be a part of it.
Call 1-800-700-7000 and get to life.
This is our nature as a country.
Discover the untold story of how Israeli volunteers are changing the world.
We consider it our duty to reach out and help others around the world.
For a gift of $10 or more, you can own the acclaimed CBN documentary To Life.
To treat a human, no matter what he is, which religious he have, which color he is, this is what I'm doing.
Support Israel in their time of need. Get to Life, now available on DVD. Call 1-800-700-7000 or log on to CBN.com.
And I wish that other people throughout the world could see this side of Israel.
Orphans Promise is committed to loving and serving at-risk children, to helping keep families together, and to creating opportunities for strong and sustainable communities around the world. We're working in over 60 countries around the world, and with your help, we can do even more. There's an old African proverb I love that says, if you want to run fast, run alone. But if you want to run far, run together. At Orphans Promise, we want to run far so we can touch the lives of as many orphaned and vulnerable children as possible. But we don't want to go alone. We're out to change the world, one child, one family, one community at a time. Will you join us?
Well, the big winner at the box office over the 4th of July weekend was Spider-Man: Far From Home, and so far it has brought in almost $200 million at the box office. Here is a look at how it rates for family friendliness from Focus on the Family.
Everywhere I go, I see his face. I just really miss him.
In the movie Spider-Man: Far From Home, the world is rebounding from recent life-changing events. Peter Parker, aka your friendly neighborhood Spider-Man, is still reeling from the loss of his mentor and friend Tony Stark.
I don't think Tony would have done what he did if he didn't know that you were going to be here after he was gone.
But he's also determined to get his own life back in order and leave his superhero alter ego on the sidelines for a while. Peter sets off on a teacher-chaperoned European vacation with best pal Ned, school crush Mary Jane, and other teens. Unfortunately, deadly threats don't take a holiday, and Peter's plans for a little teen romance in Paris are roughly shoved aside when Nick Fury shows up with new marching orders.
You're a very difficult person to contact, Spider-Man.
Gigantic elemental creatures are destroying cities around the world, and it seems that Spider-Man and a new multiverse battler named Mysterio are the only Avengers left to save the day. This latest Marvel Universe chapter is a high-energy, web-slinging adventure with tons of entertaining biff-bam-boom up its spandex sleeves. And there's a lot of self-sacrifice and heroism in the larger-than-life, heavy-hitting mix. But teen deceit, eye-roll-worthy rude humor, and some rough-edge language can hit below the belt, especially for protective parents of younger superhero fans. So I'll give the latest Spider-Man a 3 out of 5 for family friendliness. For an in-depth review on this film, or anything else at your local box office, visit us at PluggedIn.com. Plugging you into the movies, I'm Cheryl Wilhelmy for Focus on the Family's Plugged In Movie Review.
And that is it for this edition of NewsWatch. We hope that you'll join us next time. Have a great day.